Yo, look at this ice! They said the world was gonna end in fire, but they lied. It's ending in a deep freeze so cold your breath turns into glass before it hits the floor. -88 degrees Fahrenheit. Do you have any idea what that feels like? It feels like 1,000 needles stabbing every inch of your skin at once. Last time, I died out there. I was shivering in the dark, my fingers turning black from frostbite, while my so-called best friend Tiffany kicked me out of my own apartment. She did it to please a mob of hungry neighbors who wanted my cat's food. Yeah, they wanted to eat my cats. I died with Tiffany's laughter ringing in my ears and the smell of freezing garbage in my nose. But guess what? The universe decided I wasn't done yet. I woke up screaming, sweat soaking my sheets, but the radiator in my Bronx apartment was still clanking away. It was June 1st. 1 month before the big freeze. I checked my phone, the date was real. I looked at the TV, the Powerball drawing was tonight, and that's when the lightning bolt hit my brain. I remembered those numbers. I didn't see them in a dream. I saw them on a discarded ticket in a pile of frozen trash while I was starving in the future. I had stared at those numbers for hours, wishing I had bought that ticket. 14, 22, 35, 41, 52, and the Powerball 18. I didn't waste a second. I ran to the bodega on the corner like a woman possessed. My hair was a mess, my shoes weren't even tied. The clerk, old man Sal, looked at me like I was on something. "Vanessa, you okay, girl? You look like you seen a ghost." I just slammed 2 crumpled dollars on the counter. "Give me a quick pick, but I'm choosing the numbers, Sal. Don't mess this up." That night, I sat in front of my cracked TV screen, clutching my black cat Midnight. When the balls started dropping, I didn't even breathe. 14, 22, 35. When the Powerball 18 hit, I didn't scream. I didn't jump. I just felt this cold, hard stone settle in my chest. $100,000. It wasn't change your life forever money for some, but for a black girl from the Bronx with a vengeful plan, it was the spark that was gonna start the fire. But let's be real. $100K wasn't gonna build the fortress I needed. I needed F-U, money, millions, and I knew exactly where to get it. In my past life, there was a rumor about an old brownstone in Brooklyn, owned by a hermit who was a high-level coin collector. When the freeze hit, the house collapsed, and people found a treasure chest, but by then, money was just paper you burned to stay warm. I grabbed Midnight and headed to Brooklyn. The house was a wreck, half boarded up. I broke in through the back. Midnight started acting crazy, scratching at a loose floorboard in the library like her life depended on it. I pried that wood up with a crowbar, my heart hammering against my ribs. And there it was. A heavy iron box. Inside, Mint State Double Eagle gold coins. Thousands of them. I took them to a high-end dealer in Manhattan, a guy who didn't ask questions as long as you had the goods. When the wire transfer cleared, my bank account had 6 zeros. $6 million. Now, the real hustle started. I had 25 days left. First thing, I needed a location. NYC was gonna be a death trap. Too many people, too much chaos. I needed to be isolated. I found a 5-acre estate in upstate New York, way up in the mountains, hidden behind a forest of pine trees. It was a fortress made of stone and timber, with a basement carved right into the bedrock. I signed a 5-year lease and paid the whole thing up front in cash. The landlord thought I was some eccentric tech mogul. Fine by me. I hired a crew of contractors, rough guys who worked fast and didn't talk to the cops. I told them I was building a luxury off-grid milk tea retreat. They laughed, but when I showed them the stacks of hundreds, they shut up and started digging. I had them install 3-inch thick reinforced steel shutters on every single window. I'm talking about the kind of shutters that can stop a sniper round. We dug deeper into the basement, creating a second level. I installed a massive Tesla Powerwall system, enough to run a small hospital. I had them set up a state-of-the-art hydroponic farm with UV lights. While everyone else was going to be fighting over a can of expired beans, I was going to be harvesting fresh kale, tomatoes, and strawberries at 70 degrees inside my bunker. Then, I focused on the water. When the pipes freeze, people die of thirst before they freeze to death. I had a deep well system installed with an industrial-grade heating element to keep the water flowing even at -100. I also put in a 5,000-gallon backup tank, just in case. But a fortress is nothing without a crew. And I'm not talking about humans. Humans are greedy, humans are traitors. I went to the High Kill shelter in Harlem. I walked past the barking dogs and went straight to the cats. That's where I saw Tyson. He's a Maine Coon, but he looks like a miniature lion. He was sitting in the back of his cage, looking at me with these golden eyes that said, "I've seen the end of the world too." I told the lady at the front, "I'll take him, and her. Actually, give me all 30 of them." She thought I was a crazy cat lady. I just smiled and handed her my black Amex. "Call me what you want, honey. Just make sure they have their shots." I brought them all to the villa, and that's when the first glitch happened. Midnight, my first cat started acting different. It was still 2 weeks before the freeze, but she was glowing. Not like a flashlight, but like a soft amber ember. When I touched her fur, she wasn't just warm, she was hot. Like a literal heating pad. I realized then the awakening wasn't just for humans. The animals were changing first. Tyson, the big Maine Coon, he was getting stronger. I saw him move a 50-pound bag of cat food with one paw like it was a bag of chips. I had a literal squad of super cats. While I was upstate, my phone started buzzing. It was Tiffany. "Hey V, I haven't seen you around the block. You okay? I was thinking we should go get our nails done." I looked at the thermal camera feed of my perimeter. "Sorry, Tiff. I'm tied up with work, real busy." "Oh, okay," she said, her voice getting that fake sweet tone I used to hate. "By the way, my landlord is being a jerk about the heater. If it gets cold, can I crash at your place? You know, like sisters?" Sisters. The word made me want to spit. "Sure, Tiff. My place is your place. You know the code." I hung up and checked the countdown on my wall. 10 days left. I spent the next 72 hours hitting every Costco, BJ's, and tactical shop in the tri-state area. I bought 800 cases of premium wet cat food. I'm talking the good stuff: tuna, shrimp, wild salmon. For myself, I bought 500 cases of high-protein military MREs, bags of rice, flour, and enough spices to make an apocalypse taste like a 5-star restaurant. I also bought gear, real gear, tactical vests, night vision goggles, and a customized armored SUV with a snowplow attachment. I looked like I was preparing for a war, because I was. 10 days left. The air in New York started to feel different. It wasn't just cold, it was heavy. People were still going to work, still grabbing their Starbucks, completely clueless that the world was about to turn into a giant ice cube. I was officially moved into the villa. It was stocked, locked, and loaded. One night, I was sitting in the basement, watching the news on a wall of monitors. The meteorologists were starting to sweat. They were talking about a polar vortex of unprecedented scale. Headlines were screaming, "Unusual temperature drop expected." That's when my phone buzzed. It was the Bronx apartment group chat. Big Mike from 403 was complaining about the building's old boiler again. "Yo, it's 50 degrees in my living room and I got a baby here. Management needs to fix this now." Then, like a snake in the grass, Tiffany popped up. "Oh, Mike, I feel you. It's so cold. I'm actually staying at Vanessa's place in 802. She's not here, but she's got a few space heaters. Too bad she didn't leave enough for everyone, right?" I looked at the screen and laughed. this girl. She was already setting the stage to make me the villain. Just like Keep Truk, but this time I had a keyboard and a heart of ice. I typed back, "Tiffany, what you talking about? I left my keys with you because I trusted you. I told you there's enough food and heaters for a month in there. Are you saying you're keeping it all for yourself while Mike's baby is shivering?" The chat went silent for 5 seconds. Then it exploded. Wait, 802 is full of supplies? Tiffany, open the door, girl, don't be selfish. I watched through the hidden Nest cam I'd installed in the hallway. Tiffany was standing outside my door, looking at her phone with her jaw dropped. She wasn't inside yet. She was trying to play the victim, but I just flipped the script on her. "Mike," I messaged him privately. "Listen, Tiffany is acting shady. She knows the code is 8888888. She's trying to hoard everything before the storm hits. If I were you, I'd get in there and secure those supplies for the families on your floor. Don't let her stop you." 5 minutes later, I saw Big Mike stomping down the hallway on my camera. He didn't even knock. He pushed past Tiffany like she was a piece of cardboard. He punched in the code, the door clicked open, and the mob followed him in. I watched them tear my old apartment apart. They found the stashed goods, mostly cheap canned beans, and old blankets I'd strategically left behind to keep them busy. Tiffany was screaming in the background. "This is Vanessa's! You can't just take it!" But nobody was listening. To them, she was the liar who tried to hide the loot. While they were fighting over cans of tuna in the Bronx, the first snowflake fell upstate. But it wasn't a normal snowflake. It was huge, gray, and it didn't melt when it hit the ground. Within an hour, the world was white. Within 6 hours, the roads were gone. The big freeze had arrived. The temperature started dropping like a lead weight. 30 degrees, 10 degrees, 0, -20. I sat in my living room, the fireplace roaring with wood I'd seasoned for months. My 30 cats were lounging on the designer rugs like they were on vacation. And that's when the second awakening happened. Tyson, my big Maine Coon, walked over to the reinforced steel shutters. He didn't meow. He made this deep, vibrating hum that I felt in my bones. I looked at him, and for a split second, his shadow on the wall grew 10 feet tall. It looked like a saber-toothed tiger. "What is it, big guy?" I whispered. I pulled up the exterior thermal cameras. Through the swirling blizzard, I saw shapes. Blue, glowing shapes. Not humans, not animals, just things. The ice creepers. In my past life, we called them the frozen ghosts. They were creatures made of frost that hunted anything with a heartbeat. One of them lunged at the front gate. The 10,000-volt electric fence I'd installed flared bright blue. The creature shrieked a sound like metal scraping on glass and shattered into 1,000 icicles. The other cats weren't scared. Midnight, my black cat, started glowing that warm amber light again. She walked from cat to cat, touching noses. It was like she was sharing her battery. One by one, the cats began to radiate heat. The room temperature rose from 70 to 80 degrees without me even touching the thermostat. My cats were literally turning into biological furnaces. But then, the internet flickered. A final message from the Bronx group chat popped up. It was a video. The hallway of my old building was covered in blood. The ice creepers had broken into the lobby. I saw Big Mike trying to hold a door shut, but his arms were turning blue. And there was Tiffany. She was huddled in the corner of my old kitchen, clutching a box of cat crackers, the only food left. She looked into the camera, her eyes red from crying. "Vanessa, I know you're watching. I know you're somewhere warm. Please, tell me where the real bunker is. I'll do anything. Please." I didn't feel a thing. Not pity, not anger, just peace. I typed my final message. "Hey Tiff, remember when you told me that feeding cats was a waste of resources? Well, my resources are keeping me warm right now. You wanted to share so bad? Share the cold with your friends. Bye, sis. I blocked the chat. I blocked everyone. The power grid for the entire East Coast went dark 5 minutes later. The silence that followed was terrifying. No cars, no sirens, no hum of electricity. Just the wind howling like a dying god. But in my villa, the lights stayed on. My Tesla Powerwalls were humming, my hydroponic garden was glowing green and vibrant. I walked down to the basement and harvested a bowl of fresh strawberries and a head of lettuce. I sat on my sofa, eating fresh fruit, while the world outside hit -50. Tyson jumped up next to me, his fur feeling like a warm, toasted marshmallow. "We're just getting started, aren't we?" I asked him. Tyson let out a low purr that sounded like an engine. He looked at the monitors. 3 days into the freeze, something new appeared on my perimeter cameras. It wasn't an ice creeper, it was a human. Or what was left of one. A man in a high-tech thermal suit, glowing with a strange purple light. Behind him, leaning against a tree, was Tiffany. She was wrapped in a silver emergency blanket, her face ghostly pale, but she was alive. She had found a seeker, a human who had awakened a tracking ability, and they were standing right outside my gate. The man stepped forward. He didn't use a megaphone. His voice echoed directly inside my head. "Vanessa, we know you have the gold coins. We know you have the garden. Open the gate, and we might let you keep one of the cats. Refuse, and we'll burn this fortress down from the inside out." I put down my bowl of strawberries. My eyes went cold. "Midnight, Tyson. Squad," I said softly. 30 pairs of glowing eyes snapped toward me in the dark. Time to show these intruders why you don't mess with a queen and her court. The man in the purple glowing suit, the Seeker, didn't look like much, but the air around him was vibrating. And Tiffany? She was hiding behind him like a shivering rat, her eyes darting toward my fortified windows. She wasn't looking for a friend anymore. She was looking for a target. "Vanessa," the Seeker's voice boomed inside my head again. "We know you can hear us. This villa has enough power to light up a city, and we're freezing out here. You think those steel shutters are gonna save you? I can sense every circuit, every wire in that house. I will short-circuit your heart if I have to." I stood in the middle of my living room, the glow from the fireplace dancing on the walls. I didn't reach for a gun. I didn't reach for a phone. I looked at Tyson. "Tyson," I said, my voice low and steady. "Show them why you're the king of this mountain." Tyson, my 30-pound Maine Coon, didn't just meow. He stepped toward the window, and his fur started to stand on end. Static electricity began to crackle around him, blue sparks jumping from his whiskers. Outside, the Seeker raised his hands, a purple ball of energy forming between his palms. He was about to fry my security system, but he was too slow. Tyson let out a roar, not a meow, a literal roar that sounded like a mountain lion, and slammed his front paws onto the floor. Pattern interrupt. Suddenly, the 10,000-volt electric fence didn't just shock, it exploded outward. A wave of blue electricity, amplified by Tyson's awakening power, surged through the snow. The Seeker's purple energy was swallowed whole. He screamed as the surge hit him, throwing him 10 feet back into a snowbank. His high-tech thermal suit shorted out, sparks flying from his helmet. And Tiffany? She was left standing there, completely exposed. The protection she relied on was face down in the ice. "Midnight," I commanded. "Light 'em up." My black cat Midnight jumped onto the windowsill. She didn't attack. She just sat there, her golden eyes glowing like 2 miniature suns. A beam of intense, searing heat shot out from her body, cutting through the blizzard like a thermal laser. It didn't hit Tiffany. I wasn't done with her yet. It hit the snow around her, melting it instantly into a circle of freezing mud, trapping her in place. I walked to the intercom. "Hey, Tiff. Cold enough for ya?" "Vanessa, please." she wailed, her teeth chattering so hard I could hear them through the speakers. He forced me to bring him here. He said he'd kill me if I didn't help him find the gold. Please, V, we're sisters. Let me in, just for 5 minutes. Sisters? I laughed, and the sound echoed over the mountain. Sisters don't feed their siblings to a mob in the Bronx, Tiff. Sisters don't bring a seeker to break down a door. You're not cold because of the weather, honey. You're cold because your soul is an ice cube. While she was begging, the ice creepers, those frozen ghosts, started to emerge from the tree line. They were attracted to the heat midnight was putting off. Dozens of them, translucent and jagged, gliding over the snow toward Tiffany and the downed seeker. Tiffany saw them. Her face went from pale to ghostly white. "Vanessa, they're coming! Help me, please!" I watched on the monitor. I could have turned on the sonic emitters and saved her. I could have opened the gate. But then I remembered the feeling of her boot on my shoulder as she pushed me out of that apartment in my past life. I remembered the cold of the Bronx floor as I took my last breath while she laughed. "Tyson," I whispered, "guard the door. Don't let anything in, not even a ghost." Tyson and 5 other cats, the enforcers, lined up at the entrance. Their shadows were massive now, shifting and changing into beastly forms. Any ice creeper that got too close to the house was instantly shredded by invisible claws or burnt to a crisp by the cat's radiating heat. Outside, the screaming started. The ice creepers reached the seeker first. They didn't bite him, they just touched him. And everywhere they touched, he turned into solid ice. In seconds, the man who threatened to short-circuit my heart was a purple-tinted ice statue, frozen forever in a scream. Tiffany was next. She was scrambling, trying to climb the frozen fence, but her fingers were too numb. An ice creeper drifted toward her, its frozen hand reaching for her throat. "Vanessa, I'm sorry. I'm sore." The scream cut off, not because she died, but because the cold finally took her voice. She fell into the slush midnight had created. She wasn't dead yet, but she was broken. Open loop. I watched her for a long time. I could see the light fading from her eyes. But then, something strange happened on the camera. A dark SUV, modified with heavy treads and glowing red lights, plowed through the forest. It didn't care about the ice creepers. It ran right over them, shattering them like glass. It stopped 10 feet from Tiffany. A man stepped out. He wasn't shivering. He wasn't wearing a thermal suit. He was wearing a tuxedo, like he was going to a gala in Manhattan. He looked at the camera, looked right at ME, and tipped his hat. He picked up Tiffany's frozen body and tossed her into the back like a sack of potatoes. Then, he pointed at my villa. "Nice house, Vanessa," his voice whispered through my speakers, bypassing my encryption like it was nothing. "But the gold coins you found, they don't belong to you. They belong to the Foundation. We'll be seeing you very soon. Keep the cats fed. They look delicious." The SUV roared and sped off into the blizzard, leaving nothing but deep treads in the snow. I felt a shiver run down my spine that had nothing to do with the temperature. The seeker was just a pawn. Tiffany was just a distraction. There was a foundation out there, and they knew about my cats. I turned to Tyson. He was growling, his fur bristling more than I'd ever seen. "Looks like we're gonna need more than just steel shutters, Tyson," I said, my voice hardening. "We need to level up, fast." I went to my computer and pulled up the hidden files I downloaded from the old world dark web before the internet died. Files about bioaugmentation and awakened evolution. If they want a war, I'll give them a war. I'm Vanessa from the Bronx. I've died once already. I ain't planning on doing it again. The SUV vanished into the white void, but that man's voice stayed in my head like a bad song. The Foundation. They think they own the world just because they have fancy cars and red lights. They think my gold is theirs. They think my cats are delicious. I stood in my command center, my heart racing. I looked at the gold coins scattered on the table. Those coins weren't just money anymore. They were the key to everything. In the old world, before the freeze, the dark web was buzzing with rumors about a secret project called feline genesis. It was a theory that domestic cats, due to their unique DNA, would react to extreme sub-zero temperatures by unlocking dormant predatory traits. I pulled up the encrypted files. If I wanted to survive the Foundation, steel shutters weren't enough. I needed to accelerate the awakening. Tyson, Midnight, come here, I called out. The two of them walked toward me. Tyson was now the size of a mountain lion, his fur thick enough to stop a knife. Midnight was still glowing that intense amber light. I opened a silver case I'd hidden in the floor safe. Inside were small, crystalline vials I'd spent $2 million on from a black market biohacker in Seattle. The catalyst. I mixed the serum into their premium tuna. It felt wrong, but dying felt worse. 24 hours later, the villa transformed. It wasn't just a house anymore. It was a living, breathing organism. Midnight's heat didn't just warm the room, she could now project heat shields. I saw a bird frozen mid-air fall toward the roof. Before it hit, a shimmer of orange light flickered, and the bird vaporized into steam. My house was now protected by a literal aura of fire. And Tyson, he became the ultimate scout. He didn't need to be outside to see. He would sit in the center of the living room, close his eyes, and a ghost map would appear on my monitors. I could see every heat signature within 5 miles. I saw the Foundation's scouts lurking in the woods, their red lights blinking like malevolent eyes. But the most incredible change happened with the other cats. Luna, a small Siamese, developed shadow walk. She could literally melt into the shadows and reappear anywhere in the house. Duke, a stray ginger cat, could mimic sounds. He started playing recordings of police sirens and barking dogs to mess with the scouts outside. We were a private army of 31 souls. Vanessa. A voice crackled through my radio. It was a frequency I'd never heard. This is Sector 7 Resistance. We saw what you did to the Seeker. The Foundation is sending a heavy unit to your coordinates. They're coming with the Extinguisher, a machine designed to drain thermal energy. Your heat shield cat won't stand a chance. I grabbed the mic. Who is this? Someone who hates the Foundation as much as you do. Get out of there, Vanessa. They don't want the gold. They want the cat's DNA to create a new breed of super soldiers. They're coming in 2 hours. I looked at the countdown. 2 hours. Pattern interrupt. I didn't run. I didn't pack. I went to the kitchen and made myself a double espresso. If the Foundation wanted a heavy unit fight, I was gonna give them a Bronx-style welcome. I spent the next 90 minutes prepping the party favors. I used the rest of my gold coins, literal solid gold, to create shrapnel for the perimeter mines. If I was going down, I was going down in luxury. 1 hour later, the ground started to shake. Through Tyson's ghost map, I saw it. A massive 8-wheeled tank, painted matte black with Foundation embossed in white. It was pulling a giant humming device, the Extinguisher. Behind it, 50 soldiers in white Arctic gear, armed with cryo rifles. And sitting on top of the tank, in a glass cockpit, was Tiffany. She looked different. Her skin was a translucent blue, and her eyes were glowing with a cold, dead light. The Foundation hadn't just rescued her. They had turned her into a frost wraith. A human weapon. She looked at my villa and smiled. I could see it on the high-def zoom. It wasn't a smile of a friend. It was the smile of a monster. The Extinguisher turned on. A beam of anti-heat hit my house. Immediately, the temperature in the living room dropped from 80 to 40. Midnight let out a pained cry, her amber glow flickering and fading. "They're draining her," I whispered, my teeth beginning to chatter. Tyson growled, his claws tearing into the hardwood floor. "Not today, Tiff," I hissed. I hit the switch for the Tesla overdrive. The solar arrays on the roof, which had been collecting energy for weeks, dumped everything into the basement coils. Open loop. But that wasn't the plan. The plan was the basement. I'd spent $500,000 on a hidden steam vent system connected to the deep well heating element. I wasn't just gonna fight them with fire. I was gonna fight them with the one thing a freeze world hates most: pressure. Tyson, lead the squad to the tunnels. Midnight, stay with me. The tank reached my front gate. The extinguisher was glowing white hot, sucking the soul out of my fortress. Tiffany pointed a finger, and a bolt of ice shattered my front door into a million pieces. "Come out, Vanessa!" Tiffany's voice echoed, cold as the grave. "Give us the cats and the gold, and I'll make sure your death is quick." I stepped out into the hallway, midnight draped around my neck like a glowing scarf. I held a single remote detonator in my hand. "Hey, Tiff!" I shouted, my voice echoing through the broken door. "You always said I was too obsessed with my cats. But you forgot one thing about felines." She tilted her head, her blue eyes narrow. "What's that?" "They always land on their feet, even when the ground disappears." I pressed the button. The entire front yard, the 5 acres of snow and ice the foundation was standing on, didn't explode. It collapsed. I'd spent weeks digging out the void beneath the driveway, supported only by thin ice pillars I'd weakened with the heating system. The tank, the soldiers, and Tiffany fell 50 feet into a boiling pit of high-pressure steam and mud. The screams were glorious. The extinguisher hit the boiling water and exploded in a massive cloud of white mist. The anti-heat reversed, creating a thermal shockwave that shattered the tank's armor like glass. I stood at the edge of the pit, looking down. Through the steam, I saw Tiffany, her blue skin cracking. She looked up at me, terrified. "Vanessa! Help!" I just looked at her, then looked at Tyson, who was standing at my side, looking like a god of the new world. "Sorry, Tiff. I'm all out of share today." I turned my back on the pit and walked back into my warm, glowing home. The foundation would be back, I knew that. But now they knew, don't mess with the girl from the Bronx. And definitely, don't mess with her cats.